A few weeks ago, I got a note from Jared over at JNH Classics. He fixes up old cars. He has a Model T, a Porsche 356 SC, and a Honda S600. He asked me if I wanted to take a stock Honda S600 for a drive. I've never driven a stock S600 before, so I thought this was a great idea. I suggested that we trade cars and see what each other think. The S600 was Honda's first car, at least the first with any real production numbers. Before they made cars, Honda made motorcycles for several years, and they were quite good at it. Still are, actually. The engine powering their first car had more in common with motorcycle engines than car engines of the time. It had a roller-bearing crankshaft, the engine spun to 9,000 RPMs, so it's not too much of a departure from the original idea when I shoved a Honda 1000cc engine in my S600. However, the hand clutch, sequential shifting, super wide sticky tires, and suspension from other parts of Japan were probably not exactly what Soichiro had in mind. I still think he'd enjoy it, but what will Jared think of it, and what will I think of his? Let's find out. Starts right up. I'm gonna take my shoes off. The first thing you notice when driving this car is that the pedals are really narrow and very close together. It's hard to hit the brakes without also hitting the gas or the clutch. I totally forgot about this, but when I first got my S600, I put the clutch pedal in the vise and bent it so it would be further away from the brake pedal. Shortly after that, I switched to the hand clutch, so this hasn't been a problem for me. Ooh, these brakes are interesting. The Honda came with drum brakes all around and no power assist. My car has discs all around, also no power assist. The pressure required to stop is a little bit more on the stock S600.
It's not bad. I mean, it's smooth. Doesn't have the power that I'm quite used to. It's definitely a much more civil drive. That's comfortable. I like this a lot. This is a nice Sunday drive. That's a Sunday at the racetrack drive. Oh, that's interesting. The turn signal, they mirrored the turn signal. So the turn signal is on the right, and on mine it's on the left. Of course, this is a left-hand drive, but I don't think that matters. That's weird. I have often considered buying like a stock S600 just kind of as an around-town car. It's kind of as a fun Sunday drive car, and it would actually do it really well. I'm probably not going to do it now because they're going for $70,000, but I do like it. I will say Jared seems to be getting the hang of the car. Revs up to 9,000 RPMs. That's 7. That's 7.5. All right. His engine is far more expensive than my engine. I can completely swap out the entire drivetrain for probably what he would spend on replacement pistons for this thing. I really like this car in particular. He rebuilt the engine with new pistons and rings, but they weren't new, they were new old stock. And he could have easily bought some aftermarket pistons and rings, but he wanted to keep it all, original Honda parts. Ooh, those brakes. They kind of just don't do anything until all of a sudden they do something, and then that something isn't a whole lot. I always say that my car is the most visceral car you can get. You feel connected to the ground. You shift the gears. You can feel the dogs and cogs engaging in the transmission. This is also pretty visceral. You're connected to the car directly. There's no power or anything. Oh, I keep hitting the horn when I try to change lanes with the turn signal. You're connected to this car in a similar way. There's no power or anything. There's no power steering. There's no power brakes, manual transmission. But everything is a little bit smoother, and not smoother in a refined modern car way. And there's my engine. Just I don't know. Lovely. I keep thinking the word lovely. This is a lovely car. I have the same process with this car as I have with every other car. Here's the problem. I love this car, it's great, but I think, I could use a little more horsepower. Oh, maybe it could use another gear or two. Or maybe it could use a little more traction, a little bit wider on the tires. And the next thing you know, I've got my car. You can really feel the rear kind of lift up when you accelerate.
I like Jared's Honda S600. I like that he fixed it up and hasn't done a new paint job. He hasn't tried to make it look like it did in 1965. The S600 has a lot of character, and this one in particular has the character of a car that has been well taken care of and fixed up, but is still 56 years old. This car has 57 horsepower. My S600 has 3 times that, but this doesn't feel like it needs more power. It feels like it wants to have a leisurely drive along the coast. As long as you're not trying to get anywhere fast, it has plenty of power. Once you get up there in speed, you do start to notice the lack of power. Let's just say I definitely won't be getting any speeding tickets in this thing.
So I'm writing a citation for 22350, which is basic speed law, which is exceeding the posted sign.
I've never been pulled over in my Honda S600, and the first time I drive somebody else's, I get pulled over. Well, that was all right. I got a ticket.
He did give you a ticket?
Yeah.
For what, speeding?
Yeah. I passed him, and like before I even passed him, I saw him with a speed gun, and he put his hands up in the air like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I looked down and saw 50, and I'm like, "Oh, it's probably 35 here."
Is it 35 or 45?
I think it's 35. He said it was 35, so it's 35. Yeah. But whatever.
That was a blast.
Yeah, I saw you get on it a couple of times.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed driving this car. It was great. It was a pleasant drive, the kind of car you would just take out on a leisurely Sunday. This car wants to retire on the beach. This one, however, wants to get things done. It enjoys the trip from point A to point B, but only if it gets there first. These cars have a lot more differences than similarities. His is a 65, while mine is a 64. His is left-hand drive, while mine is right-hand drive. His car is a Honda S600, while mine is a Frankenstein's monster of motorcycle, Miata, and hand-built parts that are essentially a shifter cart wearing the skin of a Honda S600. It's not really even fair to call this modified. Heavily modified hardly covers it. I've changed the engine, the brakes, the transmission, the rear end, all of the suspension, rewired the whole car. In every dynamic sense, this car is completely different. The only parts these two cars share are the body panels, the windshield, maybe the taillights. We have the same frame underneath, but mine is heavily modified for a new suspension. It's a pretty big stretch to compare these two, so I'll just say this. I love both of these cars. They're both immensely fun in very different ways. If you have the means, I highly recommend buying 2 of them and swapping a liter bike engine into one of them. If I had to choose one, I'd pick mine. I want to say that with a full interior and some suspension that was a bit softer, you could get a bit more of the leisurely Sunday drive enjoyment in my car, but you would lose some of the rawness and the race car feel of it. Maybe the best place is somewhere in the middle. I don't know. I'm just happy I live in a world where both of these things can exist. Be sure to check out Jared's thoughts on my S600 over at JNH Classics, and also check out his other videos on fixing up and building old cars like the S600. I'll put a link in the description and also probably here. Hit that like button, subscribe, all hail the YouTube algorithm, and I'll see you next time.